Welcome back to the shop, my friends. Steve here at SKS Props, and recently I have been playing a ton of the Oblivion Remastered, and when I get into a new game, of course, I get inspired, and so I figured this would be a great opportunity to make some generic knight armor, similar to what I had done with the samurai armor. Now, this is of course the Legion armor from the game, but I feel that it's generic enough that you could utilize these templates to make it for other characters, or you could just make this armor set and wear it to a Ren Fair. Now, this chest armor is made completely out of my HD foam, which you can find over at Blick Art Materials, and if you'd like to make your own, I'll have free PDF files available over on my website. Like the samurai armor, this video series is going to be broken up into multiple different segments. That way, you can build this piece by piece. So this first video is going to be on the chest and the back. The next video is going to be on the pauldrons. So I want to show you what it takes to put this chest armor together. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start this chest build by taking part A. Multiple angled cuts are going to be used to put this chest together, and they're going to be designated on the template. Part A will be traced and cut out of some 10mm foam. The front edges of this piece are going to be cut at a slight 10-degree angle. Now, angles don't have to be perfect as long as you get them close to what you're seeing in the video. Next up is part B, where the top and sides of this piece will be cut at a sharper 25-degree. This will give me the shape I need to line up with part A. Another thing you can do is get the angle close with your hobby knife and then refine it with your rotary tool. And here you can see how the front of the two halves line up. Part C will attach the lower section, and the angle of this cut will help it wrap around the outside of the body. With all the chest sections cut out, I can now lightly heat the foam and seal it with my heat gun before adding my contact cement. Weldwood contact cement is applied to all of the seamed edges. This is going to be good for this type of a project because there's a lot of force on these seams. Now when applying contact cement, apply it in very light layers, allow it to dry, and then firmly press your sides together. With the front of the armor glued together, I can now attach the top. And I would recommend to only add glue to one side of part A and get it fully attached. Then after that side is complete, you can work on the other side. This is going to help keep the foam from accidentally sticking when you don't want it to. Now I'm using a piece of scrap foam to apply my contact cement. This is what I found to be the easiest way to apply thin coats. If you happen to apply it too thick, the seams will want to reopen. Contact cement can now be applied to the outside edge of part B to attach part C. Now notice when I'm attaching these pieces, I line up the front of the armor first because this side is going to be visible. I'll then flip the armor over and press the rest of the angle closed. That way, if it's off by any amount, it's hidden on the inside. Because I want this to look like hammered metal in the end, I'm going to round over my seams using a smooth sanding drum on my rotary tool. This will help knock down the overall edge, and then I can smooth that out further with a sanding sponge. After that's complete, a little bit of heat is added to once again reseal the foam. Part D will make up the base of the strap sections at the top of the armor. These are going to be traced and cut out of some 6mm foam. Now I marked some approximate areas on the armor of where I think they should line up, but of course you could change these if necessary for your piece. Now with my hands I round over the top of the armor before this is glued into place. This is going to create a compound curve and better help it conform to my body. This process can then be repeated for the other side. Any excess foam that is available you can either wrap it under or trim it flush. Using my rotary tool, I can then refine the front and the sides of these pieces. The collar for the armor is going to be made out of part E, which is going to be traced and cut out of some 6mm foam. Now there's going to be more material than needed, so I'd recommend to start in the middle and then work your way to the outside. Any excess foam can then be trimmed away after it's attached. The recessed lower sections of the armor are going to be made up of several pieces, including parts F, G, and H. These sections will also have angled cuts on the sides to match the shape of the armor. Now what I would recommend to do would be to assemble each one of these sections independently one at a time. And for all these sections I am using contact cement to have a nice quick bond. So as an example, the two part F pieces first and then part G will attach to the side. Once the upper band is complete, then you can work on the lower one. And notice how the next step down, part H is slightly smaller. After both strips have been completed, I can then apply super glue to the outside edge of the lower one. This will be glued about halfway back of the upper piece, giving it a tiered look. And at this point you can reference the video to see what I mean. Just like the other areas, start in the middle and work your way to the outside until both sections have been joined. Then using the exact same process, you can attach this to the lower edge of the chest armor. If you have any excess material that doesn't match exactly, you could always trim this away with some scissors or round it with a rotary tool. Now it's time to work on the back armor and cut out part I. This piece will also have some angled cuts to help conform to the shape. Just like before, have a very well sharpened hobby blade and make deliberate cuts. I do use my heat gun to manipulate the foam a little bit because I don't want these pieces completely flat. Part J will make up the majority of the back, and this is also going to be traced and cut out of some 10mm foam. And this is my own personal artistic touch to this piece. Part K will make up some armor that will be attached to the side. In my opinion, this better reflects the overall look to match the front of the armor. And that's the great thing about making this type of a cosplay, you can change it and make it however you'd want. With all my sections cut out, just like the front, I'm going to start at the top. And again, the outside visible seam is the most important. Always attach that first and then you can work on the back. The inside seam of part J does have a slight curve to it. This will help it conform to the back, but it does make it a bit tricky to assemble. But again, don't be worried if your seam isn't perfect. You can clean it up with your rotary tool later on. With parts J and I assembled, they can now be attached together. And because of the angle of the cuts, I would recommend to work on one side and then the other. Just like all the other pieces for this build, the outside edge is assembled first, and then the armor is flipped over and pressed together on the back. And you can see how all these angled cuts coming together make flat pieces of foam into a three-dimensional shape. The sides of part K can now be attached, and because they don't go all the way up, I do mark a reference point. That way I don't get any more glue onto the foam than is absolutely necessary. Like the part C piece, because this has a slight curve to it, it does make it a little bit trickier to assemble. So just start at the bottom and go slow, trust the process. The part D pieces from the beginning are also going to be used as the base straps for the back. Again, these are going to be traced and cut out of some 6mm foam. Like the front, I want to slightly curve the foam on the back while these are being glued down. This will allow the foam to have a better contour. And again, I marked approximate placement on the template for these, but feel free to move them if you need to because you want them to line up with the front. Part L is also going to be traced and cut out of some 10mm foam. And this is kind of going to mirror that tiered detail from the front. Like the other tiered sections, there's a slight angle that needs to be cut so the two halves can be joined. And with this piece, I've designed it so there should be a little more material than necessary, so start in the middle and work your way out. Round the lower back while you're gluing this into place and it will help retain that shape, then just trim away the excess. With my back assembled, I can now treat all the seams like I had done for the front using my rotary tool and a sanding sponge. A little bit of heat is used to reseal the foam, and now I can work on joining these two halves together. Next up, I'm going to make the straps to attach the top, which are going to be made out of part M. One section will wrap around the buckle and the other part will feed through. These strap ends are going to be traced and cut out of some 4mm foam. And the whole reason I'm using HD foam here is because I can control the thickness and the color. Of course, you could use leather, but I don't have to worry about dye lots or hide variations. And the main trick to using foam straps is backing them with nylon, especially in heavy wear areas or where the buckle will be inserted. This will actually make these foam straps stronger than leather at these points. The straps are rounded over with a rotary tool to soften the edges before heat is added. Then I can use some tinfoil to emboss the surface to give it a leather texture. After that, it's as simple as attaching the nylon webbing to the back of the straps by using some high-temp hot glue and a little bit of super glue for my double adhesive method. To create the holes in the straps, I'm going to be using my heat tool. And as you can see, it produces a lot of smoke, so definitely be sure to wear your respirator. Before these are treated, I also use a 1/4-inch leather hole punch to fabricate some fake rivets. A light coat of Plastidip can then be applied to the foam. This will help protect the embossing and make the foam more resilient. The foam can be attached around the buckle, and here you can see what the entire strap looks like assembled. The end of the strap can then be glued onto the Part D section. I trace around each strap for placement before gluing them down permanently. This process is also going to be repeated for the sides of the armor, but using Part N. These straps are a little bit smaller and the hole placement is slightly different. Now, of course, you could change the length of these straps depending on how big or small you need the armor to be. Now, of course, if you wanted a bulkier look for your straps, you could always up this to a 6mm foam as well. But I just feel that a 4mm foam with a nylon backing looks a lot more believable. Just like the top, the textures are added to the foam and the nylon straps can be glued to the back. And I know it seems like a lot of work, but these types of details are what makes this type of armor believable. Once all these pieces are painted, you won't ever know the difference. And the cost difference of making foam straps versus actual leather straps is huge. It may not be that much for 1 or 2 pieces, but when you think of the entire armor, it really starts to add up. But again, the most important part is the fact that I'm able to control the thickness and the overall look of each leather strap. One thing I forgot to film on the top straps is I did add 1 additional 2mm strip around where the buckle is. This will keep the tongue of the opposite strap from sticking out too far. Now, this piece doesn't need to be anything crazy, and again, having HD foam in a 2mm strip like this is actually pretty strong. Now, on the templates, I had marked approximately where these straps would go for my piece. And as you can see, it's going to be about 2.5 inches attached on the inside of the armor. And that's because these side straps are going to receive more strain than the straps at the top. So because of that, I'm going to be using a mixture of contact cement and super glue. As most know, this is my double adhesive method, so if one adhesive fails, the other one's there to make up for it. But this process creates an extremely tight bond, especially on my HD foam. The strap placement was marked on the back of the armor, and the adhesive process can then be repeated. And let's say you're super worried about them, you could always glue on strips of 2mm foam on top of this. That would make sure that these straps don't ever pull away from the inside of the armor. With my side straps attached, you can now see how all of this armor goes together functionally. And unless you're going into actual battle, these EVA foam straps are going to be perfect for cosplay. I refer back to the template for my rivet placement on the front. Now, these could be made by using a leather hole punch on some 4mm foam, but I decided to use some 15mm HD foam round dowel. This can be easily cut into discs using a utility blade. Then I'm able to sand the top of these to make them look like they're hammered. And a little bit of Bob Smith super glue holds them just fine. I like doing these types of builds that give you a few new tricks to add to your creative playbook. This one's a little bit more than just putting some flat sheets together, and it starts to get you to think how all these angled cuts add to the overall piece. Learning these types of basic fundamentals will allow you to create your own templates in the future. so you all can see what it takes to put together some Legion armor from Oblivion. And like I said in the beginning, this is a part 1. Be sure to swing back by for part 2, where I'll be making the pauldrons. And if you are building any of my builds or utilizing some HD foam, be sure to tag me at SKSProps on Twitter and Instagram, because I love seeing your creations. Until next time, build your best with the best HD foam.